Go ahead and call this meeting to order for September 24th, 2019. Not saying that sooner. We'll start with our invocation, and I put Mr. Thomas on the spot, so I'll give him a moment to collect his thoughts. Ready when you were.
All right, if you'll please stand. If you'll join me in prayer. Dear Father God, we come before you this day. First to say thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for your love along the way. We come at this time, Lord, to ask your guidance, your wisdom, and your direction so that we may do all the things that are right for the citizens of Caroline and the things that are right in your sight. These and all blessings I ask in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
You to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we'll start off with opening board comments. Mr. Thomas, you want to start us off?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a few opening board comments, and I try to put them on my phone as they go through so I'll remember them.
You want us to come back to you? Or?
No, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. We have, I forgot to mention this at our last meeting, but last month we acknowledged 400 years of the first slaves landing in Virginia. And I say acknowledge because it's not necessarily something we commemorate. But as next week or next month comes along and we celebrate Columbus Day, we need to understand that Africans actually came to America with Columbus. So I know as a history teacher, my buddy Mr. Black will make sure that's taught in Spotsylvania. We need to make sure it's taught in Caroline too. I want to congratulate Chief Loftus and all of the folks that participated in the Fire and Rescue Award for the apparatus. $900,000 is, if we did a tax increase just to cover that, it would be 4 cents for a year. So thank you very much, Chief, for saving that. We've got, VDOT has pushed their meeting back, so I do have a couple of concerns from a citizen who called the other day. They wanted more speed limit signs on Ladysmith Road and on Sparta Road. This person apparently travels the entire county, and we all know that the speed limit is 55 unless posted, but he suggested something I thought was quite good, that there are a lot of people who are moving into the county and may or may not know. And I don't necessarily recall any signs on Sparta Road. I don't know if you do. And there are not many on Ladysmith Road other than the one that says end of 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. So maybe we can touch base with VDOT and get 1 or 2 of those put up. And last but not least, I had a discussion with our Germanna rep by accident last week, and our agreement with them I thought was 5 years, and apparently after going through the notes, and I saved the notes, so I did see for myself we only paid for 3. But I would like to set up a meeting with Germanna so we can discuss possibly better use of that facility there. And if it's only $40,000, I mean, it wouldn't kill the county, but let's have a discussion about whether we'd like to do that another year with Germanna.
Mr. Thomas, on that note, you and I need to chat, okay? Because there's another opportunity that I'd like to clue you in on.
I'm always willing to chat. So.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do that. That was all I had, Mr. Chairman. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Black?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Forehand. I just have a few. I want to thank all the citizens from my district as well as yours that came out to the trash pickup for Ladysmith Road. We covered about 3.5 miles worth of road, got 31 bags of trash on Saturday morning. So I appreciate that. It's kind of amazing to see how much trash can be left behind in a matter of 3 months. So really want to thank them for helping out with that pickup. I do want to welcome, I know we've got them on the agenda, County Line Baptist, to celebrating a 235th anniversary. So we'll have that in a couple of minutes. Chief Loftus, Thank you so much. I mean, that was great news. The $900,000 grant, that's huge. So we really appreciate that. It was great news for us. And finally, I think everyone knows the state fair is going to be starting this Friday night. And so just encourage people to go out and enjoy the fair. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Ms. Long?
Just a couple of things. First, I want to thank Praise Temple Church for allowing me to have my constituent meeting over there on the 19th, and appreciate their hospitality. Also, I want to congratulate the YMCA on a nice 5th anniversary celebration. Mr. Black and Mr. Forehand and I were there, and I thought it was very nice that Congressman Whitman also came by and spent some time shooting basketballs with the kids and cutting the cake for that ceremony. It was fun. We had a good time. Of course, everybody support the fair. And Chief, 4th time is the charm. I know that was not the first time you put that grant in, so thank you for being persistent for us, and congratulations again on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple announcements. As Ms. Long mentioned, State Fair starts, so looking for a great week at State Fair. That's one of our great partners in the county. Second, if Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that I'd like to give a resolution to Pastor Good at Mount Salem Baptist Church for his 25th anniversary. It's going to be celebrated on October 5th. If we could put together a resolution of good deeds for him, I'd appreciate that. Certainly, Chief Loftus, I want to say excellent. That's just almost, when I first read it, I said, there has to be a typo in there somewhere. And you talk about $900,000 is a lot of money, so that's a blessing. My last comment, Mr. Chairman, is last meeting, all of us had a note in our package about some requests and about surplus money at the end of the year. And I often talk at our meetings about surplus money, but what that says is that we have a budget that we work within. Doesn't mean that we have all the money that we would like to have to buy for the county. It just says that based on the money that we take in, we're doing a good job of budgeting it and spending. So because it says surplus doesn't mean that we have all the money we'd like to have. It just means that we certainly are doing a good job. Mr. Culley, certainly thank you for your conservative numbers and making sure that we're on the right track. Because without that money, we wouldn't be able to take part in that grant, for example, that's going to ask us to spend $100,000 or 90+ thousand. We wouldn't be able to, if we had budgeted till the end of our funding, we wouldn't be able to take part of that. So I hope citizens understand that surplus money doesn't mean extra money. It just simply means that we've budgeted and we've spent accordingly. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those that don't know, the July 1st of this year started a new law which says that if you're driving in a construction zone and holding your cell phone, that is a ticketable offense. So those driving in Bowling Green who are talking on their phone as they're driving through the quote-unquote construction zone need to be very careful. I've had a number of phone calls of tickets that have been written. They are upwards of $200 plus court costs. So it's a new law. I'm not sure everybody's aware of it, but if you're holding your phone and you're driving and you are seen, you probably will be stopped and a ticket written. Huh? I've asked that. They had to actually go from replacing, it was supposed to be just sewer lines. They had a bad water line in the same place, so they are now working on the water line as well. I don't think this is going to finish before winter. Just a data point, because I've been asked the question a number of times.
That is my street, just so.
I understand, and repaving will commence as soon as it is complete, and that will be completely repaved. I too want to congratulate the chief on the breathing apparatus award, I was with Mr. Underwood. I kept looking for the comma in the wrong place. I said, I can't, I had to make it on my phone, actually make it larger to look at the number to make sure that the number of digits actually matched the comma. But congratulations, that is a job well done. My last comment is Bowling Green is having clean sweep this Saturday, and I don't know how many folks are having stuff out, but it's an event that takes place twice a year in Bowling Green, and the second one is this Saturday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seeley, is that a yard sale, or is that a clean out your garage? What is that?
It is it is the Bowling Green wide that you turn in an application to Town Hall, and they actually put you on a map, and everybody in town actually sets up in their front yard or their driveways.
Okay.
But it's town-wide.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Again, I wanted to also piggyback on the state fair coming up, starting, I believe, this Friday. And then Chief Loftus, the grant award, it's outstanding. It's a 90% grant. Can't ask for anything better than that. So that makes makes our budgeting a little easier next year, and maybe get us back on cycle in purchasing our fire truck that we skipped this year. Also was a participant, again, has already mentioned that the YMCA 5th anniversary. I believe we're going to have a speaker from the Y here today as well. Again, a great event, and Y is doing some very good things in our community, and they're always looking to do more. I look forward to hearing from those activities. Piggybacking on what Mr. Underwood said regarding surplus, it's sometimes misunderstood, and I'll just elaborate and put it in different terms than what was already said, but we do have a surplus. We've had a surplus the last few years. However, it's not something that is a bad thing. That last year's surplus was under 1%, and even though that's on a $100 million budget, when you count the school's budget and the county operating and all that, so it's good. It's good budgeting. It's good follow through from the department heads. It's predictable collections on the revenue sides, and things, predictable spending habits of the economy and the residents here. But at the same time, yes, we have a surplus, but we're still financing police cars and school buses occasionally, and fire trucks, and capital projects like improving one of our landfill facilities and things like that. So yes, we have a surplus from our budget, but it is not because we are not taking on debt. So we are taking on debt. We're paying off more debt than we're taking on each year, which is a great thing. But it doesn't mean that we're ready to go start lowering the tax rate to start making those surpluses zero, because we still have some ground to cover as far as being able to pay cash for things that, for example, a police car's useful life is about 4 years. So, and we finance them for 4 years. So it's when we can start paying cash for those, and we have a little more of an economic base, and not tax our residents to the degree that they are, then everyone up here would be more than happy to start lowering the rates so we can give some relief. But anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Underwood. I appreciate that. All right. With that, we'll go in. Any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Can I add one thing onto that? Because you've said some good things, and it was brought up by Mr. Underwood before. Mm-hmm. But really, the surplus is due to Mr. Cully's budgeting, and he is very conservative as far as revenue, and extremely conservative when it comes to expenditures. So we've had different county administrators who were more aggressive, and we got close to it. But it's really, a lot of credit should go to Mr. Cully. So I just thought we should recommend, commend him on that.
Yes.
And there's no such thing as extra money.
I have one amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'd like to have a discussion about National Night Out, and refunding those organizations up to $500 who sponsored National Night Out in our communities.
Okay. You want to do this like a 7B? I'm
Seven.
sorry, 6C?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chairman.
Ms. Long?
I'd like to move that we add two things to our agenda. One is proposed information meeting on the water withdrawal permit. It doesn't have to be a board meeting. It could be an informational meeting, and anybody that wants to show up, including supervisors, certainly could. But I would propose that we put that under new business 6A. And also the town of Fort Roll would like to go over the comments that they have presented or submitted to VDOT. And since they are part of the county, ask our support or consideration of support in their recommendation. And I would suggest we move that to item 6B under new business.
You're not suggesting a solution on A, are you? You're just saying
No,
we should have
no,
a
just
discussion? Okay,
a meeting,
okay.
a public
Yes.
meeting
Okay.
here.
Much like what we did with the roadway improvements, Ladysmith Road, where it's just come as you are.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Do we
Mr.
need-
Ch-
do we
Mr.
need a
Chairman.
motion?
Mr. Chairman, I
Second, I'm still writing. Give me a second.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Black?
We're going to have a discussion
Oh,
on the amendment.
any other amendments before we discuss? Okay. Mr. Black?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote no on the amendments, just because of the fact that it's frustrating for us. We got an email yesterday afternoon, sometime come in, and we got our board packet on Thursday. And it's kind of frustrating when you get your board packet on Thursday afternoon, and we get stuff coming to us last minute. And some of us, like, we don't have time to look it over fairly before we come here. So it would be nice if it's an emergency where something comes in on a, we have to take it up because it has to do with financing or something. That's one thing. But I think we need to start to make sure that we get stuff into the county administrator if we want it on the board agenda before the deadline. That's all. So I'm going to vote no on the amendments.
Mr. Chair, if I could respond to that
Yes, Ms.
comment.
Long?
I agree. I don't like last-minute things. However, the letters on this water system went out. It doesn't affect every board member. It only affects those who the proposed water line routes go through. Mr. Schiebel has fielded about 30 calls. I have had about 10. And I have had citizens ask us to have an open meeting and let them know we're going to have it so they can ask questions of the consultants. And I think that is no big thing. And when people want information, we certainly should provide it. And if we don't start setting a date and letting people know now, we're waiting 2 more weeks and then 2 more weeks after that. And also on VDOT, as it is, their recommendations went in from the town 2 weeks ago, and VDOT has, this little window. I called and I said, we don't have another meeting. Can you please give us an extension? So that's why that was pushed for tonight. We don't necessarily have to have a vote on something, but we need to get the information and the presentation done. And those were just both time-sensitive issues. The packet didn't go out from the town in time to get it to you earlier. So those are the justifications for that. And I would ask that we move forward with that, and also Mr. Underwood's.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I
Underwood?
just want a clarification. So, Mr. Black, you're saying all amendments for tonight, you're saying you'd like to hold off on those?
I would, yes, just to be consistent.
As you recall, the conversation regarding National Night Out took place at the last meeting.
Oh,
And we
okay,
said we
that's
would-
fine, that's fine. If
just-
that's okay, just as long as, I'm not shocked that it wasn't on the agenda then.
I didn't call for it to be on, I didn't call specifically to ask, but we said we would take it up. So I'm just want clarification as to.
Okay, well,
Your
then that's
objection
fine.
is that we're getting material after the
Right.
agenda has been
Right,
published.
yes, that's my big
And
opinion.
you want only emergency issues
Right,
to be.
right, absolutely.
Okay.
we can call the question on the proposed
Actually,
addition.
Mr. Seeley has a comment.
I was unable to open either one of the attachments. I had to call Mr. Black last night to at least tell me what they were. The one, and this is the one for the proposed comments on Virginia Department of Transportation, alternative improvements to the Route 301 corridor on the town of Port Royal is marked for action tonight. And I haven't even read this, so I don't know that action is something that I can actually take.
Action as far as a presentation.
Well, action typically means a vote. No action would have been information only. So I'm not prepared
but
to
the-
vote.
But the requested action is discuss and provide direction to staff. It's not a permanent decision.
I couldn't open it, so I couldn't read it.
But I'm just saying.
I'm
the
just
action-
looking at what this says.
Right, and you make a good point in saying that there's action required and you didn't have a chance to read it.
Right.
But the mitigating factor is the action that is required is just to provide direction to staff. So the action is staff, go do this. It's not us making a final decision.
I don't even know what it says.
Well, then, maybe we
Mr.
should listen to
Chairman.
the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question. I mean, for me, it's just a principle thing.
All right, we'll take a motion to accept the amendments as defined on our agenda.
So moved.
Okay, a second? Mr. Thomas, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Roll call. Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Nay.
Ms. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
And I vote aye. We'll have our agenda for this evening. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and start with our presentations and reports. Resolution recognizing the 235th anniversary of the County Line Baptist Church. Mr. Black, did you want to read this? Mr. Black? Did you want to read the resolution for County Line? Okay.
We have it for you tonight, and we'll call you down for a picture. It's a resolution celebrating the 235th anniversary of County Line Baptist Church. Whereas County Line Baptist Church has a rich and vibrant history in Caroline County and has been a pillar of the Charlesburg community since its beginning welcoming parishioners in 1784. And whereas tradition had it that County Line Baptist Church was originally located on the current Route 738, very close to the border with Spotsylvania County, a fact that lent the church its name and was confirmed when a map and a note were found in 1996. And whereas the church was organized by the renowned Baptist pastor John Waller, whose actions in refusing to secure a state license to preach the gospel were a catalyst for the religious freedom afforded through the United States Constitution. And whereas sometime around 1840, the church moved from its original location to where the current cemetery is located in 1884. A new building was constructed on the current site, and many subsequent renovations followed to add needed space for worship, education, and fellowship. And whereas Caroline County wishes to honor the church's history and accomplishments on this special occasion and thank its members for their many contributions to the betterment of the county throughout the years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby extends its heartfelt congratulations to County Line Baptist Church on the occasion of its 235th anniversary and sends its best wishes to much continued success in the years to come. Adopted this day, the 24th day of September 2019, signed Chairman Clayton Forehand. You guys will come on down. Please. Pastor, if you don't mind, Williamson, if you don't mind just staying there for a second, we'll call you down. I was thinking about this last night when I saw this as far as what I was going to say here. And Mr. Thomas just mentioned just a minute ago, as you know, I'm actually a history teacher in Spotsylvania County. And today I was actually teaching the United States Constitution and the Articles of Confederation. And the United States Constitution, the Constitutional Convention is 1787. And so that means you guys were around before we had our first president and before we actually had the government that we operate under today. That's absolutely insane. So that's kind of cool to go back that far. So you guys predate all the presidents of the United States, so that's kind of neat. Stop and think about it. So congratulations.
Or the House of Burgess.
Yes, well, the House of Burgess is around. But come on, if you guys don't mind, would you like to say anything?
Just thank you very much for the presentation.
And why don't you guys come on down for a picture if you don't mind. Joan, come on.
They're going to go up on the stage.
Okay, next item would be an update from Empower House. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Chairman Forehand, supervisors, and county administrator, thank you for having us. I'm Kathy Anderson. I'm the executive director of Empower House, a local nonprofit organization supporting survivors of domestic violence. We've been around since 1978, and we are here tonight to give you an update. I'm here with board member Paul Aiken. And before we start our presentation, I just think, and we'll share some information we'll leave behind, but wanted to let you know that our annual charitable golf tournament is October 4th at Pendleton in Ladysmith. And it's been at Ladysmith at Pendleton for the last 11 years. Hope you can join us. If you'd like to join us for lunch or for dinner, please let us know. We'd love to have you.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here today to give you an update on some of our activities as it relates to Caroline County. We appreciate the opportunity. As Kathy mentioned, I'm Paul Aiken. I'm a volunteer board member. So a lot of times we like to come before the boards of our jurisdictions and just kind of give an update to see where we're helping the actual local community. In fiscal year 2019, Powerhouse supported 175 domestic violence victims and their children in Caroline County, and 1,177 victims in Caroline County and their children over the past 6 years.
I want to let you know that locality funding, and that is the 5 localities of Planning District 16, including Caroline County, I wanted to let you know the services that are provided as a result of your funding. And as you know, there's an application process, and it's program-based. And just wanted to let you know that the funding supports our 24-hour hotline, our services, our advocacy services for survivors of domestic violence, and that's through the court system and support groups and things like that. Services for children exposed to domestic violence, and also our shelter and housing supports. And so all of our services for victims and their children are free and confidential.
In FY 18, Empower House provided over $98,000 in services to Caroline residents through the programs that Kathy just mentioned, and the county provided funding to Empower House that same year of $4,624.
In addition to direct services to victims and their children, Empower House educated or trained Caroline County Fire and Rescue at Station 1, Bowling Green, and Station 2, Ladysmith. 20 fire and rescue personnel received 4 hours of training on domestic violence to help them respond to emergencies. This happened over the past few years, not this past year. And also 324 Caroline high school students were assisted, or rather provided education on healthy relationships and the warning signs of teen dating violence. And we had last year trained 32 social workers from the Caroline County Department of Social Services. In the last couple of years, Empower has engaged over 800 county residents at meetings, the library, events, outreach activities, businesses, healthcare offices, churches, and we did that to make sure those offices knew about the life-saving services and the issues of domestic violence.
Empower House has written and signed memoranda of understanding with the following Caroline County government offices: the Sheriff's Office, the Commonwealth's Attorney Office, the Victim Witness Assistance Office, and in Court District 15, which includes Caroline County Court Services Online. Empower House regularly attends the Caroline Resource Council meetings chaired by the Caroline County Department of Social Services.
I want to give you an update on our domestic violence shelter. I think some of you may be very aware that over the years, probably for a 10-year period, we set out to expand and make sure that our shelter was accommodating, that it was large enough for the folks needing the services, and that it was accessible. And as a result, in 2014, we purchased a building with the support of donors, and we set about rehabbing that building. In doing so, we opened the building in 2016, summer of 2016, which was great news. And the expansion, we went from a 2,800 square foot building to a 10,000 square foot building, significant in that we then offer suites with bedrooms. We have several kitchens within a larger kitchen area. We have seating for all the residents rather than a table that seats 6. We have a welcoming space where people can heal and have privacy. And we're also located closer to Caroline County by doing that move. We, thanks to the community, we were supported by 2 local governments in the capital expansion, $50,000 each, and the rest of the $2.4 million project was supported by donations, thankfully. We really knew that since the former shelter was built in 1988 and really was the entire operations of the organization, and then the organization expanded to better serve, we were routinely turning away families and people who needed to be safe in shelter. And we have not had to do that since opening the new shelter. And I think another really significant thing of note for Caroline County, in the year that we opened, that first year, Empower House shelter and housing supports for Caroline County residents doubled. I think it's also noteworthy for you to know, if you didn't know, that Empower House every week attends the Caroline County Juvenile Domestic Relations Court docket, which is where the domestic violence cases are prosecuted, and we speak with the victims of those cases.
It's also worth noting that first responders are safer on the job and cost the county less than otherwise would be the case if Empower House were not serving Caroline, because we provide alternatives to remaining in violent relationships. As a regional nonprofit, the services are provided at a lower cost than otherwise would cost the county to provide the services directly. And all of our services to victims and their children are free with no charge to them.
It makes a difference to the work of serving our entire region, that all of our localities support Empower House, and we appreciate that Caroline County is a part of that support. And we just really wanted to thank you for your budget line item of $4,855 in the FY19 budget. And we, by coming tonight, we just wanted to give you an update on what we're doing and make sure you know how your support is being put to use for Caroline residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very informative.
Can I ask them a question before they go, Mr. Foreman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Thomas.
Ms. Anderson, why did you change the name from Rappahannock Domestic Violence, which,
Yeah.
made people know what it was to Empower
Sure,
House?
thank you for asking. So, we asked our founders how important was it to them that we stayed with that name, and they didn't actually have they expected that name would change since sort of a council formed in 1978. And we found that a lot of people, it didn't resonate to hear a long name, Rappahannock Council on Domestic Violence. So many people, I know you hear the words domestic violence, but so many people said, well, what is that and what does it do? Or they would hear RCDV, which didn't mean anything either, or got confused with the other alphabet soup acronyms. And when this name was selected, one of the survivors who volunteers for the organization, when she looked at all the names on the board, she looked and she pointed to the one that said, not M, but it said Powerhouse. And she said, that really resonates for me. I would really like to go to an organization with that name, because when I was going through this, I had to get my power back. And you didn't give it to me, but as a result of walking alongside of you and the services that you provided, I was able to get my power back. So a lot of people want to come and also want to help.
So it's more on the victim side they came up with that name rather than you.
It's less intimidating, yeah.
Okay, and my thought was just domestic violence might get you more, but the last thing is you said you had 175 victims from Caroline.
Victims and children.
What percentage of that is your total intake,
Yeah.
I guess?
We served over 3,500 total. Yeah.
Okay. And we gave you $4,855, and you spent $98,000 in the county.
Right. So we're able to leverage other grants and contributions, and then
So we're getting
we're
a
able to-
25 to 1 return.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe we should do better next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll leave these behind for you. If you have other questions, we're happy to
Thank you.
answer them.
Thank
you
you all
very
very
much.
much. Appreciate it.
All right, next up we have the report from the Rappahannock Area YMCA.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's great to be here tonight. It's great to see Mr. Cully. Congratulations on your impeccable budgetary skills. Surplus is always good. It's great to see staff that the YMCA worked with many years ago, Mr. Parton, Mr. Whiteman. So it's good to be here tonight. I want to give a special thank you to Mr. Chairman, Mr. Forehands, Supervisor Long, and Supervisor Black for being at the YMCA on his 5 years of progress in this community. I think you have in front of you a 5-year impact statement. And while there's still a lot of work to be done, and it will be perpetual in nature, it will never end. That's the nature of the YMCA's business model. I'll wait till we get this. the first 5 years have been very productive. And as you can see from the statement, the YMCA has not been idle. We have a tremendous staff. I would venture to say that probably 80% of the staff at the Caroline Family YMCA are members of Caroline County. They're residents. They do an unbelievable job. They believe in the county. They love the county. And the Y in return, which is a benefit to the county, has provided a meaningful workplace for these individuals. But together, we've provided a very, very solid service that we hope that has enhanced the quality of life of the people of Caroline County. As you can see, we've awarded $390,000 in financial assistance in the first 5 years. That means people who are unable to pay or pay the full boat of a membership have been allowed, and we're honored to provide that service, have been members of the YMCA. So where a family membership may be $90, there have been some people that just did not have the capacity to pay that $90 per month and may have paid $60 for a family or $30, depending on their circumstances. And in some cases, I know that the people just weren't able to pay for any. And while that's rare, that there are those cases as well. So cumulatively, $390,000 has been awarded in 5 years to members of Caroline County. 450 families have been enrolled in what we call the Open Doors program. That's our financial assistance program. That's what we call it, Open Doors. As we move down, you'll see the YMCA Bright Beginnings. 170 children have been provided with clothing, shoes, and supplies for their return to school in the fall. We work very closely with the school systems in Spotsylvania County, King George County, Stafford County, the city of Fredericksburg, and Caroline County, especially with the school guidance counselors. Many of these children are not prepared to go to school with respect to clothing, the school supplies that are necessary. The Bright Beginnings program that was ushered in by one of our staff members many years ago, Elizabeth Taylor, we have made a concerted effort in every county, and as you can see, 170 children in Caroline County have benefited. So they hold their head up high when they come to school, and they have their backpack, they have their school supplies, they have a good several pairs of clothing, so it makes them and gives them the confidence that they need. As you can see, the second grade Learn to Swim program, 768 children have learned life-saving skills with the help of 50 volunteers. Where did those 50 volunteers come from? Caroline County. We hope by the time this will be the case, by the time that the first class of children that were in second grade that learned how to swim in the very first year, by the time they're seniors, that year after that, every child in the school system in Caroline County will have learned to swim, and it will be forever in perpetuity that as long as the Y's here teaching this program, every child will learn how to swim. With the proximity of many of these children to the Mattaponi, the Pamunkey, and other rivers that you have in Caroline County, it is critical that these children learn a life-saving skill of swimming. So that's 768 children. The Summer Learning Loss Prevention Program, Mr. Black will be proud of this. 60 children have had no summer learning loss and gained 2.5 months in reading. It's been proven and found that many of these children, that when they leave school in June, and that the lapse of June, July, August, they come back and they take a step back. These children are identified, once again, in collaboration with the YMCA and the school system. They are identified with having this potential deficiency and are identified, and they go into this program with the YMCA, and they see not that they've remained steady, that there's been an actual uptick in their ability in the reading and writing and math. Swim lessons, just in general, in Caroline County, 694 individuals have learned how to swim at the Caroline Family YMCA. That could be the young children. It could also be adults. So we have many people throughout the course of the year in the Planning District 16 that never learned how to swim as adults, but they're learning how to swim at the Y. Swim team. We have a swim team now in Caroline County. Thanks to the YMCA and the partnership with the county, 268 children have participated in our summer and year-round swim teams. So with the YMCA and the pool that we have, Caroline County now has a swim team and a year-round swim team for young children to participate in. Many of you all know the gold medalists. Not every child's going to be a gold medalist, but we are proud. Jeff Rouse, who serves on our regional board, as a child used to swim at the Y in the 80s. And so he cut his teeth and learned his stroke at the Y, and he went on to be a gold medalist in I believe, the 88 and 92 Olympics. But more importantly, it's not so much the fact that we have an Olympian, while that's prestigious and it's an honor, it's the people learning how to swim. CPR lifeguard training. 90 individuals have become CPR or lifeguard certified at the Caroline Family YMCA. So that's a positive move, having more individuals in the county being CPR and lifeguard trained. The camp and SAC. SAC stands for School Age Child Care. 560 children have benefited from the care and enrichment of camp and after-school programs. And altogether, ladies and gentlemen, we've had 7,000 Caroline County citizens have been members of the YMCA. I believe that, I think that in Caroline there's roughly, give or take, plus or minus, somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 28,000 people. And I think that those numbers, that's a pretty good penetration, and that will only increase. So while we have a lot of work to do, there are some things we haven't done yet. We have made progress, and I think we're moving in the right direction. Young people and older people are working at the Y. Young children and older individuals are volunteering at the Y. And people are enhancing and improving their quality of life because of the decision this board made several years ago about moving forward with the YMCA. And more importantly, no one has turned down membership to the YMCA. The YMCA is where the playing field of life is level. And if you know anybody that's been turned down or there's not, you let us know and we'll make sure that we address that. So we're very proud of the 5 years. Again, I reiterate, there's still a lot of work to do. But I can tell you that the first 5 years, we have not been sitting idle.
And now, I think you're being modest. Y'all have installed a great playground facility that's open 24/7, essentially. Homeschool fitness, your senior activities in that facility have just blossomed the last couple of years. Pickleball, the busing from the church organizations down in Dawn and the Ladysmith area is just outstanding. Water aerobics, pickleball, things like that. So, again, a lot going on, and very happy with how things are going, progressing nicely.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments.
Mr. Underwood? Before he goes.
Mr. Riley, when we first opened the YFE, and I appreciate all the things that you're doing and moving forward. I just have a couple concerns that I wanted to express this evening. First of all, some YMCAs offer different programs. Can you explain or help me understand why there's no uniformity? For example, the Silver Sneakers program is not available in Caroline County. We're a county of some middle to low income folks who come. Just explain to me how you decide what programs are available in each YMCA.
Well, I would say that the programs that we offer a wide array of programs for children, toddlers, young adults, and senior citizens. There is an old saying, while there is a tremendous amount of consistency with the YMCAs, every Y is inherently a little bit different given the nature of their locality. A Y in Mobile, Alabama, or in Tupelo, Mississippi may be a little different from a Y in New York City. But with the premise of the Christian and core values that will always be prevalent with every YMCA that's run. So that's a great question, Mr. Underwood. With respect, so there are some differences, but We still offer the real core programs, like you see the second grade Learn to Swim, the Bright Beginnings, we have AOA, Active Older Adults, all these different programs for all the different various age categories. But with the Silver Sneakers, that program is a little bit dubious in that its business model just didn't fit with the Ys, because basically the health companies got some type of reimbursement, and the individuals were paying less. And actually, when we looked at the business model, it really encouraged people not to be members of the Y. And it just was inconsistent with our business model. Now, for those individuals who need the help, we're here, and we will give them the financial reprieve that they need. It just was not, and as a matter of fact, I think I heard just recently, United Healthcare has dropped the Silver Sneakers program. It just is not a program that's conducive to really fitting in with the clubs and the YMCA, because it kind of detracts from their membership pursuits. But in no way, luckily for the Y, these people have an option. They can transition if there is a financial issue. They can come right into our Open Doors program. But with no disrespect to the for-profits, the American Family and Goals, they do a great job in our community, and they certainly have their place at the table. They will not offer financial assistance. So those people who may have been on Silver Sneakers and going to those clubs, and I think they're weaning themselves away from the Silver Sneakers as well, they're going to be in a bit of a pickle. But with the YMCA, they come right over to our Open Doors program if it's a financial issue. So to kind of, and I wish I could be more explicit with regards to the Silver Sneaker, but they've been kind of moving on the continuum. But the basic nature is that they pay us a fraction if we were to engage in this partnership. And it really encourages. So there's a win-win for the participant, and there's a win-win for the health care, but it's really not a good situation for the YMCA. For the YMCA, being a nonprofit, we already have this large effort every year from the staff, from the volunteers and the board, to be proactive and go out and raise money to defray the costs that we award. Just within the Planning District 16, we awarded over $1 million last year. So we can't engage in a partnership that compromises us anymore. It's a very slippery slope, to say the least.
How are some of your, because I have people in my district who are going to Hanover to the YMCA, participating in the Silver Sneakers program. So I'm really trying to get a handle on, you're telling me that there's a core set of programs that you offer in all YMCAs, am I correct? Basically a core of different programs that you offer, correct?
Yeah, for instance, at every Y, I'm sure.
Okay.
But to give you an example, you'll have progressive swim lessons. You'll have group fitness. Now, you may go to one Y in Southampton Roads and they like more yoga or cross-training classes.
I understand that.
So you have this basic curriculum of programs that we all offer.
Based on your community needs.
Correct.
I understand that.
Correct.
But I'm saying there are some core offerings in most YMCAs. Am I correct, or based on the need then?
Correct.
So you have a list of offerings, and those that people participate in more, you offer more of those.
That's right.
Is that correct? Okay. All right. That's not the way I'm understanding, but I'll have to do a little more research. My second issue, Mr. Riley, is when we talked about the YMCA 5 years ago, we talked about a capital campaign to offset some of the costs, and we have not moved. And I was one of the people who sit here and supported the Y being where it is. We had talked about it being in a more central location for our citizens, and I want our citizens to be able to participate. And I'd be interested in the 7,000, but my question to you is, where are we with the capital campaign, first of all?
Well, just to be clear and going back, and this is a very good question, and I don't mean to, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I would like to clear the air, because I don't know if many of you know, but about 10 months ago, and Mr. Seeley was involved, Culpeper County was contemplating a YMCA. And unlike King George and Caroline, with Caroline County and King George, there was more of a consensus that, and there was a consensus in Culpeper. Wonderful board to work with, wonderful community. However, this is in my humble opinion, so please take it that this is my opinion, my optics, my perspective.
I shall.
In King George and Caroline, I feel that you all more invoke political will. And what I mean by that, in my estimation, is that you all thoroughly researched the YMCA, and you knew that it was going to cost X amount of dollars per an agreement that was drawn up by Ben Emerson, the county attorney, and that was vetted with Mr. Emerson and the board and voted on. And with Culpeper, from the meetings that I attended, they were all in for a YMCA/community center.
I want to talk about the camp.
Yeah, but I'm going to get to this community. Well, yeah, I'm going to give you. And so,
He was asked a question, he needs to answer.
Seeley.
you want to know, well, this is where I'm going with the agreement. And I would like to address, Mr. Seeley, your presence at that meeting, if I may, at the end, when you feel like I've answered the question.
Gentlemen, this isn't the time to do that.
Okay.
It's,
All right. So, if you all reviewed the agreement that we had, Mr. Underwood and the rest of the board, the YMCA, I agreed to be a participant in that capital campaign. Mr. Akers, and if it wasn't for Mr. Akers, we wouldn't have this YMCA, and this impact sheet would not be here. So my hat goes off to Mr. Akers, and he carried the banner for this YMCA. And it was, as you all, if you read the agreement that was drawn up by Mr. Emerson and that was voted on by this board, Mr. Akers and a group would go out and raise the money. And I was going to be part of that group, okay? And as a matter of fact, I went out on several calls, both with Mr. Akers and by myself, and I could outline those.
I just want to know where we are
Well,
with the capital campaign.
I'm one of the soldiers, okay?
Is there a capital campaign going on at this point?
There was a foundation and committee, and from what I understand, they're not meeting anymore.
So is
I'll
there,
interject because I have the answer.
Well, yeah.
And I met with the group about a year and a half ago. They are no longer fundraising. They conceded that they undertook something that they completely miscalculated.
Okay. I mean, what group is that? Because I actually have in front of me a spreadsheet with your name on it and several people who pledged.
Right.
Now, I am a hoarder. I make no qualms about that. I save everything. And I remember a lot. I do remember, which is why I asked if you could get to the answer, I do recall all of the political fallout that came from the Y.
Absolutely.
But I do recall you saying that you would embark on a capital
No,
fund
no.
program.
And the reason why you have a spreadsheet with my name on it was because I agreed for Mr. Akers to handle some of those duties. That should in no way give you the impression that this campaign was mine or the Y. My board was very explicit on that, Mr.
Mr.
Thomas.
The spreadsheet has nothing. It
Okay,
does
so
not
what's your
say,
point?
It does not say this is what Mr. Riley was doing. There are Union First Market Bank, $175,000. You were the one who supposedly got that money.
I was the one making calls because there was
you got that money?
I don't know. That's not up to me. I was just doing the work. I was doing some of the work, but you guys, I feel
Okay.
like you're trying
I'm
to
done.
paint the YMCA in a corner. Wait a minute.
No, I'm done.
And say that this was our campaign when we were very clear in the beginning it was not.
All right.
No, you just said.
Gentlemen.
You just said.
Gentlemen.
No, he deserves
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
You just said that you were not responsible for anything at all. That's what you
No.
just said.
I said I was a soldier. I was one of the people out raising the
Did
money.
you collect the money from Union First Bank? $175,000?
I made the call.
I don't. Okay, I know I'm speaking English.
Yes, I know.
Did you collect the money?
Did I
from
collect the
Union
money?
First Bank?
Can you qualify that? Did I collect it?
Did the county or the Y receive
Any money-
$175,000?
You
from
guys would
Union
have
First
to.
Bank?
You would have to find that out. And I'll tell you.
Mr. Riley,
yeah.
let me say, I don't want to beat you up. That's
No, you're not beating me up. I just don't want to.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that the promises that we discussed regarding the wide,
Such as?
making sure that we have equal opportunity for kids who live further from the Y than those that live close to the Y.
Right.
Making sure that those seniors who live in a far proximity from the Y have transportation. We talked about having transportation.
You're exactly
for those
right.
folks. The YMCA is a good thing. I've supported YMCA since the beginning of time. So I know what you guys can do together, what you can do for a community. And you're doing some of those things, and they're good things. But I want it to be a grander picture. I want more people to be able to participate. I want more people to be able to say, who live further from the YMCA than in Ladysmith or Western Carolina. I want to make sure that those people are given an opportunity to experience the YMCA and all of the good things that you're saying that we know are true if people are allowed to participate. That's what I want.
And in fairness to Mr. Underwood, when we went and spoke to many of the groups, so you showed up and you aligned, our intention was to get an earlier start and be, I'm not going to say proactive, because for the last 5 years, we've had to focus on the facility and mitigating the challenges and risk of a volatile economy at best. So you're exactly right, Mr. Underwood. You and I went around, and on some level, and it's still my intention, I'm never going to vacate that, and we're going to work in that direction. But I can understand sitting where you're sitting that you were hoping that was going to happen sooner than later.
That's correct.
And I agree with you. And for that, I do. I apologize. But it's not because I turned a jaundiced eye to it. It's because it's been a very difficult economy, and the first order of business as a CEO was to make sure that the $5 million investment that you all made in Ladysmith, that we had that facility solvent and financially viable. But you are right.
Mr. Riley, I'm not pointing any fingers.
No, I know that.
I'm just saying, I want some of those promises that we made to be fulfilled.
Yes.
If we can do that, then I can go home and look in the mirror and say, we did it.
Right.
But until we do that, as I told many of my constituents, that's my responsibility to them, because I promised them that we would have those that transportation.
You're right.
And they didn't bring it up, I did, because I felt I've let them down in that area. So I want to make sure that we bring it back to the forefront as part of our thought. And as we're going forward, that we're looking at ways that we can make the impact greater throughout all of Carolina and not one area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And so what you're saying is there is no capital program, right?
So, yes.
There is no capital program.
There is no, but that, according to Mr. Forehands, and I haven't been contacted. I used to get contact that when they were going to meet, and then Wayne was at the helm, and he would say, hey, can you make this call, or can you make that call? And I would do it.
Okay. Not having seen what Mr. Forehand seems, I can only assume that that was the local group that Mr.
Correct.
Stork was involved
It
with.
was all local folks.
Yeah, it was quite a few.
There was several different groups.
I will still contend, Mr. Riley, and you know, when there was a young lady here last year sometime, and I told her what a great thing the Y was. My intention for you being here was to find out where we were in the capital program. I do recall without a doubt that was discussed, and there was supposed to be some input from the Rappahannock area of the Y. Regardless, we're here now. You have a nice day.
Ms. Black, do you have something to say?
Yeah, just something really quickly. As far as it was your 5-year anniversary was obviously that was a very nice event. And I just, from me perspective, as far as I think you guys are doing an excellent job in the community. And however, the Bright Beginnings program, which I think is one of your strongest programs, maybe you could be. I don't know if you came to the Polar Bear Plunge last year. That's a very strong program for getting funding out. And the YMCA dipped last year in its fundraising. And,
I donated for Paul Gehring to jump in, but I wasn't there.
But I think, so I don't think Paul participated last year. He did 2 years ago. I don't think he was in it last year. But Paul did a great job bridging that gap, some of the tensions between the county. But it would be nice to see, because I don't participate in a lot of your other programs, but the Bright Beginnings program, which deals with kids in our county, as well as that, if you finish in that top 7, you get the extra $500 from the Ruritan Club. So that's another 5 kids per year.
Absolutely.
That you would like to see you guys. Since you guys have that many members, that would be a big thing. And also the litter pickup along Ladysmith Road. I think that kind of fell a little bit behind the wayside. I talked to Mr. Bowers about it. Mr. Bowers said that they would definitely adopt a highway program. Would like to see. I know that when Paul was there, Paul was very, very consistent with making sure that he would call me, we would coordinate. And that we would say, hey, look, when it's going to be picked up. And it's a big help to the county, too. It saves us from having to send people out to go pick up that litter. So if you could just make sure that whoever is now in charge at the Y, that they coordinate and so forth. And I talked to Mr. Bowers about that as well. So those are very positive things that I'd like to see continue forward with you guys.
Absolutely.
Okay? All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I'll just conclude it with thank you for coming.
Sure.
Myself and my family have been members since very early on, and I acknowledge that the Y is providing a lot of things that would otherwise not be provided in this county. Services, the public pool, the events where you open up the building to let everyone just come and enjoy games and activities and things like that. So I'm definitely appreciative. It's a great perk for me because I live so close to it. It's easy for my kids can ride their bikes there, but that's just proximity to where it is. But want to thank you for coming in.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Thank you all very much, and it's an honor to be in Caroline. It's a beautiful county.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we are at our appointments section. Actually, before we go to that, Jeff, did you want to mention this? Yes.
Okay. Shamika,
Mrs. Coleman?
the Caroline Promise Board members that are here, can you come on down for a second?
Jesse,
Come on, Cleo,
Shamika.
before you run out the door. Come on, Cleo.
Well, we
Shamika,
don't have to
come on
make her
down.
walk. We don't have to make her walk off.
Jesse? No, while you were sitting in the audience and I neglected during opening board comments, Jesse brought me out a card.
Mrs. West and the other young
Mrs.
lady
West, I
behind
didn't, there she comes, right behind everybody. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about your expo for young entrepreneurs coming up. I see it's the 16th of November. Since you all were here and being patient, rather than wait for public comment, we thought we'd give you at the end of presentations to actually talk a second about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The expo is on November the 16th from 11 to 4. This is where we platform all of our future entrepreneurs and give them the opportunity to show off their gifts. What happens generally at this event, they have a vendor table where they have their created items, whether it's a book. Last year we had an 8th grader, Emily Hart, who actually launched her book in 8th grade because of the expo. We had several artists from Caroline High School, students from Caroline Middle School and Elementary. So this event is actually setting our kids up for the future and allowing them to have a resource and a backup plan, because we indeed want them to attend school and go to college. However, God has given us all gifts, so make sure you utilize that gift for another stream of income. And it's teaching them now early, sowing the seed in them early and showing them exactly how to start a business, how to maintain a business. The community, like you guys, will come out and support them. I'm excited. This year we have Joey Fry. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he is an absolutely phenomenal artist. I think his business is called Artism Artist, and he's actually going to be opening his business on the storefront in Bowling Green. So just to have him come and show the young ladies and men that they can too do something big in the community. We also will have Caroline's Chamber of Commerce there talking to our students, because a lot of people are not tuned into the resources of what we have here in Caroline. And Caroline Chamber of Commerce offers a $500 scholarship for students who actually graduate from Caroline to come back and open their business here in Caroline County. So I think that's awesome. We'll also have a guest speaker to show them exactly how to maintain a business, what they need to do to get a tax ID, and also a banker. So if their parents want to actually sow a seed in that day and open up an account, kind of set them on a platform to do so. So I'm excited about that. We started it last year for the first time, and it's an absolutely phenomenal opportunity for our future kids of promise. And I thank you guys so much for your constant support and always supporting the things that we do in Caroline's Promise. And yes, Mr. Black, we will be participating in the Polar Bear Plunge so that we can be in the top 5 again this year, so we can utilize those funds to do extracurricular activities in safe places for our kids in Caroline's Promise.
Who's going in the water?
Clay Forham, and I'm recruiting Mr. Underwood and Floyd Thomas. Hopefully they would.
Mr. Thomas doesn't do cold.
No, but
If you want me to be out there in 150 degrees, I'll do that.
I think we could charge for spectators. If you,
I
if
think
you were
so,
to
and
go.
I don't do cold.
I think we would definitely be in top 1 or 2 if we actually can get Underwood, Seeley, and Mr. Thomas to be jumping in the water. So I'm gonna go ahead and pray on that and see what we can come up with. Is there anything else? Is there any questions?
Thank you for all you do with the kids. And I was at last year's Entrepreneur Day. It was fabulous to walk around and look and talk to each one of those students and their skills.
Yes.
You do a great job.
And-
You do a great job.
And I also, Mr. Chairman, I also wanted to thank all your volunteers, all your students for helping out at the Y. I mean, you had volunteers from Caroline's Promise working every corner of that YMCA, and they were doing it with a smile and with a good heart, and I do appreciate that.
Yes, and those students
Please
were
tell
all
them
part
thank
of,
you.
Caroline's Middle School National Junior Honor Society, and they're excited. We also have 20 students that's volunteering on Sunday at the Massey Low Park for the Family Fit Day. We partner with YMCA so that our kids will, one, have community service hours available, and to give back to the community in the Dawn area, which sometimes don't have as many activities. So we're going to bring it to them on a Sunday where the churches will be releasing, and they can come right on over to the park, and we're going to have health and wellness seminars, doing health and fit activities with the families. Caroline's Promise will provide healthy snacks, not cookies and candy, but healthy snacks, because one of our promises is healthy start in future. So if you guys are available for that event on Sunday, feel free to stop by. And again, thank you guys for your support.
Is today any special day of anything? Like a birthday or something?
This month, we had a special birthday for the matriarch of Port Royal, who is standing behind me in the green St. Patrick's Day outfit. Yes.
She's 21 and something. But thank you very much. We appreciate you. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor, and to the chairperson and to the members of this Board of Supervisors. I very much appreciate the opportunities that you have encouraged me to fulfill in the 31 years of my retirement. When I retired 31 years ago and returned to my native Caroline County, I have been kept busy ever since, and I am delighted. But now that I am at this advanced age, I bid you adieu.
Problem with that is I know where you live.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much. All right, with that, we'll move on to our appointments this evening. The Advisory Committee, the Student Representative. I have no information.
Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes, Ms. Long.
move that we accept the appointment of Kendall Jackson to the Recreation Advisory Committee and the appointment of Rebecca Deo and Arlene Hicks to the Census Complete Count Committee.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the 3 listed individuals to the 2 committees. We have a
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have 3 newly appointed Caroline County citizens.
Mr. Chair, does
Ms.
that
Long.
close out the Complete Count Vinnie?
I don't know that
It
it's-
seems like we have enough.
I don't know that it's ever really closed. If we have an individual that has a link to a needed community to be counted, but I don't think we're actively seeking anyone else.
Okay, so we
That
don't
makes
need a
sense.
motion to close nominations or anything like that?
I think we
Okay.
can just keep it open and, yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, with that, roll along to our consent agenda. Any items on the consent agenda that any member would like to pull off and discuss in more detail?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda as listed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda has been adopted. All right, we had hoped to get through some other items tonight, but we will take a break now and convene promptly back at 7:30 for our public comments, in which if you have any comments for the board on any item that's not part of a public hearing, you're welcome to do so at that time. It's about 13 minutes from now. We will see you in 13 minutes. We are not adjourned, but we're just on recess. Thank you. All right, we'll reconvene, and we'll start off with our public comments. It is 7:34. Anyone like to come forward to speak on any topics that are not currently scheduled for public hearing or have not been decided upon by the board? Please come forward at this point. You have up to 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, I will unfortunately have to cut you off.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is George Spinner. I live in the Mattapani district. After I was sitting in here listening to the comments from the gentleman from the YMCA, and I thought Mr. Underwood brought up some very important points about the distance away from, for people living far away from the YMCA. And I wanted to get up here and make a proposal that perhaps people who do live a specific distance from the YMCA be given a reduction in the price of joining the YMCA on a yearly, monthly, however they calculated basis. And I just thought maybe that was something that you all might take up as a proposal. For instance, people in Mr. Underwood's district, part of Mr. Thomas's district, and also Mrs. Long's district, might benefit and might be more willing to join the YMCA if they could get, a discount in their fees. I mean, because after all, for me, it would be 20 miles to go to that YMCA, and why should I have to pay the same price to go to the YMCA to travel there as Mr. Forehand, who lives a mile or two from the YMCA? So I just think it would be, something that would make it more fair and equitable for people living in certain areas of the county that are a distance away. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on any topic that's not currently scheduled for public hearing? Anyone else? Not seeing anyone come, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing, our public comments, and then we'll move into our public hearings. Starting off with item number 4, text amendment 09-2019, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Caroline County by amending article, that is 15, supplemental regulations, section 4, accessory buildings and uses. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your one and only public hearing tonight is TXT 09-2019. The proposed amendment would allow accessory structures in the front yard of a lot in the R1 district subject to standards. If you will recall, we discussed this at the last board meeting, and the board authorized the public hearing for tonight. We've had a number of situations, particularly in the lake communities, where we have lots that front or the back of the lots are encumbered by resource protection areas around some of the lakes in those communities. And it causes setback issues when somebody wants to put a garage or other storage building in their backyard, and it's encumbered by these RPAs. The BZA has had a number of these cases sent to them, and we were finding that this was becoming becoming an issue that perhaps was not a BZA issue that at least needed to be evaluated legislatively to see if there was an ordinance amendment that could be considered by the board that would address that issue. This amendment would be very limited in scope. You would have to have a pre-existing lot that's encumbered by a resource protection area. And the construction on the lot would have to be such that they could not have one of these accessory structures in the rear yard due to this encumbrance. All the standards are included in your staff report. And I'll be happy to address any questions you may have.
Is this existing structures, or can someone with a undeveloped lot build their home in the back of the program border, the lot bordering the RPA?
The intent would be it's existing structures. We might need to clarify that because I was reading through that earlier and it does not expressly state that. Although as part of our application, when somebody comes in, we look at them and tell them to take that into consideration. But you might want to specifically say that this applies to existing lots and structures.
Okay.
Mr.
Black?
Mr. Fincham, so I guess my question is, so if I buy property in Lakeland or Lake Caroline, and I've got the resource zone in my backyard, are you saying that since I'm a new to the area and I need like a shed, that I won't be able to do it at that point because I'm not pre-existing?
It has to be a pre-existing lot. It does not address a pre-existing structure, which I think is an issue to consider. When somebody comes in and wants to build a house on a lot, we always sit down and work with them to encourage them to think about the future of the property and future uses of that property so that they don't close the door on just what you're talking about. This ordinance amendment does not specifically say that it applies only to pre-existing structures.
Okay. So then...
So if you want to add that, yes, you could do that.
No, not necessarily. I actually don't. So, all right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we start our public hearing? Okay, we'll start our public hearing for text amendment 09-2019. Anyone wishing to discuss or comment on this proposed text amendment, please come forward now. Anyone like to speak, please come now. All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing. And you're back, Mr. Fincham. I'm on the fence regarding, it already addresses the existing platted lots.
Correct.
Some might only have a buildable space right that borders the RPA. Although they wouldn't want to put a shed on a hill. But any recommendations or thoughts along those lines? Either way.
We could look at that some more. There are no cases pending before the BZA, so that this isn't a pressing issue. If you want to take an additional meeting and discuss it some more in the meantime, we have time to do that.
And the neighborhood, the primary neighborhood is Lake Caroline.
Pardon?
The primary neighborhood that this has been an issue is Lake Caroline?
That's where the majority of requests that the BZA has seen has been, yes.
And Lake Landor is zoned the same way?
It's zoned the same way. It would apply to Lake Landor as well. And again, the situation in both cases is you tend to have smaller lots. Right. With the R1 zoning, you tend to have smaller lots in these communities that, combined with the RPA feature, can be problematic.
I have a question. Do we ever have cases where the shed doesn't meet all the setbacks? House, road, property line?
Septic system.
It would not, when it's permitted, it has to meet the setbacks. If it doesn't, then they have to apply and try to get a variance to the setback requirements.
How many of those have we seen?
Not many over the years.
So that's not going to be, I'm just looking for what, we do this and then it's, well, now we've got a setback issue, property line issue.
Generally speaking, setback issues generally do end up and are a BZA issue. You could have an addition to a single-family dwelling.
Correct.
So
I'm just asking because I see this as and that's why I was curious if there were many. If there's none, that's fine. I'm just curious if there have been many of those or if that was going to be the next, the BZA gets, yeah, we've got this, and now the next real issue is, from the road, from the house, from the property line, because we're talking about 15,000 square foot lots.
we occasionally see it where there is a variance for a setback. It's usually a side or rear setback. Very rarely is it a front yard setback.
Okay.
In those cases where it might be an encroachment into the front yard, generally it's because it's an addition to a dwelling, or and I think in all the cases it generally is demonstrable hardship that the BZA has to consider.
I don't remember, is there a size for these structures that we're talking about?
I
I don't remember. I'm now looking and I just...
Yes, it was conditioned. It's not a specific number. It is...
It's relative to the size of the primary dwelling.
30% of the gross floor area of the dwelling, or the front yard, whichever is less. So if you had a 1,000 square foot house, 30% of that would be 300 square feet.
You could have a one-car garage.
Not for 300 square feet.
That's about all you're going to get for 300 square feet.
A shed.
Big shed.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion. If anybody would like to make a motion to approve or delay, table, kill.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to propose that the board allow for the accessory structures, allow in the front yard of a single-family dwelling in the R1 zoning district.
So your motion is to approve the
Yes,
text
so
ordinance
yes.
amendment? Okay.
To
We
approve.
have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, do a quick roll call. Mr. Thomas?
I vote aye.
Mr. Black?
I vote aye.
Ms. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Seeley?
I vote aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. All right, moving on to unfinished business. Item number 5, RZ 06, 2018, William and Betty French, Marshall Automotive applicant. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, again, the Board of Supervisors held a public hearing on this item at your August 13th meeting. This item was deferred by the board at that meeting to allow Mr. Thomas the opportunity to discuss the issue, I believe, with the Belmont Homeowners Association. Staff does not have any additional updates for the board. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Let's see. I had some just clarifications. Looking at the suggested conditions, and I didn't notice this the first time. The 321 vehicle and spaces, when we were looking at that originally, that was, all right, 321 cars for sale potentially. Would that include staff parking, visitors, things like that? Are we physically out
Yes,
there
it's allocated by
counting
type.
spaces?
It's
Okay.
allocated by type, so there's inventory vehicles, there's vehicles for display, and there's also parking for vehicles related to the repair service establishment. So that 321 is the total number of vehicles allowed on site for all uses.
Okay, so that includes staff and visitors?
Outdoor parking, yes.
Okay.
And that parking is identified on the development plan.
Okay, I wanted to make sure it included those other things, so we didn't go out there and count 360, and then, oh, no, it wasn't clear. There was 321 for business purposes, and then another 46 for staff and visitors and things like that, so I want to make sure that's clear. And then 180 inventory vehicles. That's 180 vehicles that have something wrong with them, and that seems to be flip-flopped. At least in my mind, I was thinking that this would be primarily for car sales and not primarily for car service. That's a lot of vehicles to be waiting
The
for
applicant
service.
also has several other car dealerships, and it's his intention to use this as the preparation facility for his entire business operation.
Okay. Multiple sites.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the 180 and the 25%, they are not flip-flop. That's as intended.
That's correct.
Okay.
The 25% was an attempt, understanding there will be some phasing of the project in terms of its growth. The 25% was so that there's some number of retail vehicles for retail sale on the premises, a minimum percentage at all time.
Okay. Number 9, the hours of operation, the back-end time is 6 p.m. I've bought many cars after 6 p.m. in my life, in my very short, adult life. I think that's ties his hands quite a bit on the sales side of things.
Okay.
I could definitely live with 8 o'clock, and most car dealerships are open until 8. I wouldn't suggest anything after that, but if you work a standard job, you're not going to be able to walk in, find a car, test drive it, and do all the paperwork anywhere close to before 6 o'clock. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that.
I believe the applicant is here.
Okay. The items 12, 13, and 14, those are all in accordance with the sign ordinance, correct? That
Yes.
We spent a lot of time
Yes, sir.
on that. Okay. Is there
And
any
we
reason-
actually included that in the SE.
Okay.
Yes, they're in the ordinance, but if they're violating those provisions of the ordinance, then they're specifically violating the special exception permit.
Okay, so it's a different enforcement mechanism.
You could, yes, and in fact, you could revoke the permit for noncompliance.
Okay. When I saw them listed out, thinking that they were the same, then it made me question, all right, why are we specifying them out separately if they're in fact the same? So I understand that. Okay. I didn't see anything regarding landscaping.
That's covered by the HCOD regulations, Highway Corridor Overlay District regulations.
Okay. And
And there are specific standards spelled out in the HCOD.
Okay. All right, that's all of my questions, concerns. I'm ready.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, and Mr. Fincham, the rezoning and the special exceptions are actually different issues.
Yes, sir.
One can be approved and one not approved.
You,
Well, actually, the rezoning can be approved or not approved. If the rezoning is not approved, the special exceptions are mute.
that's correct.
But one can be done without the other. Okay.
A rezoning could be done without the 2 special exception permits.
And the items that are just, you and I discussed this previously, but the items that are permitted in the B1 R1 business district would be, name a couple if you would, please.
Offices, retail stores, convenience stores and service stations, gas stations, machinery, sales and service, places of worship.
So with 5 gas stations in the area, a gas station probably not going to be one of those, theoretically, but that's a by right.
Correct. Retail store, any type of retail store.
Offices,
Offices, yes, sir.
Massage parlor.
that's a special exception.
I'll play the game. It's okay.
That's a special exception. So, all right. I guess it's my turn, or if there's no other questions. I have no problem with the rezoning at all, and I think it would be in the best interest of the county to have that property rezoned. I did have several discussions with people at the Belmont HOA and several discussions with people who were not at the HOA meeting per se. So I don't believe that that is a good location for a used car lot. I definitely don't believe it's a good location for 300 plus cars. So I'm going to make a motion to approve RZ 06-2018 and then deny the 2 special exceptions.
All right, we'll just make those separate motions.
I can do that separately. So my motion is to approve RZ 06-2018.
Second.
All right, we have motion and a second to approve RZ 06-2018. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And for the record, that's with the proffers provided by the applicant.
Yes.
Proffer statement.
With the proffers.
That would have to be
Yes.
proper.
Were the conditions part of the,
Not the conditions, but the voluntary proffer statement.
okay.
The conditions would be part of special exception. But I would move to deny special exception 12-2018 and special exception 14-2018.
We'll do those separately.
What-
We have
one-
to do them
one-
separately.
Okay, 12-2018.
All right, motion to deny SPX 12-2018. Need a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Roll call vote. Mr. Thomas?
I vote aye.
Mr. Black?
I vote nay.
Ms. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
And I vote nay. We have a 3-3. Motion fails.
Yeah, the motion fails.
I have a question, Mr.
Fincham?
Fincham. I've lost it. I'm thinking about my question.
It's okay.
Can we ask the applicant about lowering the number of vehicles? Can we have that discussion?
You can have that discussion, or you can do that on your own motion.
Well, I'd like to hear kind of, I don't want to just pick a number out of the air, because this property has sat empty now for many, many, many years. This is the first interest we've had.
That's not necessarily true. Why don't you, because the rules are, Mr. Fincham, and I think I'm aware of the rules, if we do not take action on this particular special exception, it can sit for a year before we have to take action, or is it 90 days?
If you do not take action,
Right.
any zoning amendment, I believe the board has to act on within 12 months of its referral by the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors. So you have additional time. I don't think you have 12 months.
Mr. Fincham, while they're looking at something, let me ask you, on our agenda, and I think it's just a typo, our agenda does not have SPEX 13 on there, But it is in our book, so that's just a typo, correct? That
It-
has not been pulled?
No. At the originally, there were 3 special exception applications. If one of those special exception applications was deemed not necessary and pulled for consideration even back at the Planning Commission because it was accessory to the to the repair facility for the car dealership. So there was a special exception for our auto body repair that was deemed not to be necessary.
Okay,
So
so
you are only
there's no-
having to consider the 2 special exception permits.
The approval date was April 25th by the Planning Commission, just as a reference.
Yeah, and I have an update on that. I just looked at the zoning ordinance, and you have 12 months from the date a use permit application is officially filed within which to act. And I'm looking at the application, and the date on it looks like December 3rd, 2018. So you are actually, you could take it up, but that window is closing.
So actually, this is September, so we have October, November, we'd have to act in December.
First meeting in December. Or your one meeting in December.
It's the 3rd, the latest date on the application. Again, we're just doing it on the fly here, but it looks like the application is dated, the last signature was 12/3/18.
So we have to do it
We
at our
do
meeting
November.
in November.
That would make it
We
November.
have 2 meetings in November. It's an odd
One meeting in
one.
November.
Right, because we move Thanksgiving. We can do that. That's 6 weeks. I think we'll have,
Now, I will add that the caveat to that in the zoning ordinance is that the applicant can request or consent to an action beyond that period, but you would have to get the consent of the applicant to go beyond December.
Mr. Chair, well, did we ever find out if we could ask the applicant questions to be considered during that time, or should we pass it through staff? Okay, directly to them. Gotcha.
So we'll entertain a motion to defer these 2, SPX 12 and 14, to our November meeting. Is that accurate?
So we voted, so are we gonna vote to? Failed. Correct. You're gonna turn your mic on?
okay, well, we'd be stuck in the same position, so we might as well have a motion to defer until our November meeting and see what we can do before that.
I'll make a motion to defer until our November meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to defer. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay. I have to vote nay since it was my district.
Okay.
And you didn't vote along with me.
We'll do a quick roll call. Mr. Thomas?
Nay.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Ms. Long? Mr. Underwood? Aye. Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
And I vote aye. We will defer till our November 12th?
That's a Thursday. 14th.
November 14th will be the date this is reconsidered. And if you have any questions, then we can forward them to Mr. Fincham. Concerns, comments? I have an hour's concern. I think it ties their hands unnecessarily, personally.
And I think for the record, you've moved to defer SPX 12, 2018 and SPX 14, 2018.
Well,
Okay.
SPX
Correct.
12,
I don't think we
2018,
read that.
SPX 14, 2018, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Both.
I didn't know.
And I made the motion incorrectly, but do we need to revote that?
No, I
or
think,
is the
I think we can
clarifications enough?
clarify that. It was fairly clear what your intention was, but for the record, I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Well, he's not going anywhere. I still got to earn my keep.
So if we send an email of what a great job you did tonight, will that help?
During bonus time.
Christmas is around the corner.
And then, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity,
Yes,
to make
sir.
sure there's one point of contact. If board members have questions, they'll send them to Mr. Fincham, and then Mr. Fincham will address those with the applicant.
I think that's best and most consistent.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 6, our new business acceptance of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Assistance to Firefighters Grant for self-contained breathing apparatus and authorization of local matching funds and the amount of
Is that even a question?
$95,313.64.
Great presentation, Chief.
Okay.
Can we make a motion now, or do we want the chief to say anything? I'm going to move that we,
Were you here for the opening comments?
Yes, sir. And thank you for all that. We will pass it on to the team that worked on this.
make a motion that we approve the $95,313.64 in local matching funds.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any other discussion?
Can we bring the team to the next meeting to recognize them for what they did? I just think that would be Chief Loftus before
Certainly
the
do
next
that.
meeting, his presentation. I just think that would be
You
nice.
saved us, 0.8% of our
You're
budget.
you're making them
Well,
stay
you know,
late to come to something. that-
Interestingly enough, we usually have one person write the grant, and this year we split it up into everybody's forte, and that seemed to pay off. So we will certainly bring it.
Like it.
All right.
All righty.
Thank you.
I think we'd like to see him in October. You can swing that?
That's fine.
Okay.
We may have.
Well, depending on how ugly things look in October.
We need a motion. We need a
Motion.
Motion second.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We have a motion, a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
That's the important part. All right, item 6A, water route public information meeting. Nothing in your packet. We have a
Basically,
addendum.
it was on the table. What we're proposing is to create with the consultants that are working on the Rappahannock River intake, to have a meeting here where the consultant in this room could go over the background and all of the reasons why. And a lot of people don't actually understand that you actually have to have the route, an alternate route in the wetlands looked at. You have to have the site of the water plant and the wetlands. You got to have all these things just to get the intake permit, even though you may not build those things for a number of years. It's all part of the process that is required. So we'd like to have this informational meeting for the people, and we would recommend that we would send a letter out to the 155 people that got the original letters, inviting them to this informational meeting, and then we could actually have some boards up and more of a one-on-one discussion with the engineers and Mr. Schiebel and board members if they wanted to be in the EOC room. So just kind of do a night. It's not really a board meeting. We're not asking you to have a public hearing on the matter because it's really all we're doing is following DEQ requirements, and you don't even know what route you're going on until you can determine what route is the best environmentally and all those kinds of things. So just I think that's what we're looking to try to accomplish.
Exactly. The consultants, as far as I'm concerned, they could pay to send out those letters also. Sent out a letter and then followed it up with a second letter before there would have even been time for people who signed the first letter for them to receive it. Not to mention the gentleman who signed the letter mailed them and then went on vacation. None of that sat real well with me, and I'm sure not with Mr. Schiebel, who fielded more, because he was second contact, so he fielded more calls. But I got the distinct impression from my constituents that they felt like something was trying to be snuck behind them or around them. And that's the last thing I want. It's got to be open, and all I need is permission to have the consultant here send the letters. I don't care who shows up, but definitely my district. Floyd, did you have any in your district? No? No, because it's got to get over to the water treatment plant, so it should have been some other districts. Yeah. So, but anyhow, that's all I am asking for, but it will take some staff time and a room here. So I want to go ahead and get that set up with the board's consent.
Do we have any prospective dates? I assume this is an October schedule.
Mr. Schiebel, have you had a chance to talk to the consultants for a date?
That's good for him.
What did he do to his back?
I guess the CBAT letters didn't teach us anything about.
We got one date where the entire team could make it, and it was October 15th.
That's awful quick.
I was thinking it was the 17th, but hang on.
17th gives us 3 weeks.
This is just the initial meeting, though.
This is an
It
informational
was
on
the
why they're
17th,
receiving a letter,
October
why do
17th.
people want to come on my property.
So there's going to be several meetings, and you'll send out a letter that says there's a meeting, and it'll explain all of these things in it, and then it'll say, please come to the community center or wherever the meeting's
If you
going
want
to be
more
held, right?
information, yeah, we'll hold it here, and we'll have our engineers up here, and they'll have a PowerPoint presentation and talk about all the procedures that we have to go through for permitting on the river, the routes that we've looked at, the locations for possible intake sites, the location for water treatment sites, and then we'll break up from here and go into the EOC rooms, and we'll have some maps up and be able to talk to people individually if they wish.
But we're not having several meetings. This is primarily for the people
Yeah, we would be
who are
here
on the
presenting to the public.
pipeline, than
Anybody
or
that wanted to
anybody
come and
from the
listen.
public. But we're
Yeah.
not at the point of having multiple public hearings.
Right, but there are going to be other districts, I'm pretty sure. We don't really know. It's not all.
So the letters went to the whole route. So if
I
there
know
was a letter in
someone
your
to your
district,
area.
So how does it get from
The
your
routes,
district back to the,
the routes were 17, both north and south.
right?
301, Petmire Hill Road, Route 2 coming south, 207, some Route 1, and some went down Ruther Glen Road.
Yeah, so it's everybody's
So,
district. other
so,
than-
so Route
come
2
to
is
the
Mr.
meeting.
Sealy, to some degree,
it's
and 207 is Mattapanai.
right. It's
Correct.
everybody. Those letters went. They went to everybody in
There was
everybody's district.
155 letters that went out.
155 letters went out.
It
So
is a
you're-
rare day that I don't get a single phone call.
Right, but we're not proposing a meeting in each district. We're talking about one informational meeting.
And everybody that
I'm
got
just
the letter would
saying,
get a letter.
We should have this first one as soon as possible, like you say, on the 17th, when we
Thank
can
you.
get everybody there.
Can you give us the addresses in our
More.
district so that
Yes,
we
sir.
at least know?
Yep.
Because
I didn't get any calls about
I
it.
didn't get any call.
Well, we didn't get any heads up that the letters were going out
But,
to begin with, so I was caught blindsided.
okay, but that's,
October 17th works for me if it's all right with everyone else.
All right,
I don't have a problem
It's a
with it. That's the
Thursday.
date.
we're going to make a motion or vote, just,
As long as we get agreement from the board, I think we're fine.
anybody have serious disagreements with holding the meeting on mid-October?
Right, and this would just be a public information meeting. It's not a board meeting, but we want those who are affected by this in the future and have questions to be able to attend. Mr. Sheba, what time do you want it for them, did they say?
We didn't really discuss, I mean, we were thinking between 6 and 7 to have the meeting, so 6 would probably be a good time to have it, but it's really up to the board if you got a time
6
that
is
you can.
probably a little early if you're going to get people.
wait, you
Well,
said
if
the
it's-
17th, right?
If it's an open
Yes.
thing and you could go, 6 to 8, kind of like we
Well,
did with
it'll be
VDOT.
a presentation and then follow-up questions individually.
You want to do 6:30 or 7, you tell me.
7's fine.
7? All right.
I just keyed in 6, way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheba, feel better. Do we need, we don't need a motion on that, do we?
No.
You're going to be stuck with it. Should get some lake water.
All right, item 6B, Port Royal 301 project. Give us something, another addendum.
I like that route.
Are you kidding? They're going to cut
Oh, we didn't have it in
this
the-
completely?
Thank you.
Can't do it. You can't do it.
wondered who that was. Nancy?
Yes.
Who was this guy on here?
Yeah, that's fine. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms.
if I
Hall.
could, while we're waiting to get the PowerPoint going, the mayor of Port Royal, who happens to be Alexander Long, who happens to be my one and only, is going to be doing the presentation. But I wanted to say, as a former mayor of the town, I am proud of the work and study that they went into with this. It's been through Planning Commission. They've had multiple public information sessions with VDOT and without, and it's been discussed at town council several times. Unfortunately, I could not attend the town council meetings because they're held on the same night as our board meetings generally. I did attend some of the VDOT public information public meetings, and there were a lot of different ideas put out there. However, it's really hard to contain the historic nature of this town and the residential feel of this town, considering the increase in traffic. So we wanted to bring this to you. The town had to submit a recommendation, and the board needs to be informed as to what the future is going to bring. So if we are ready, Mr. Mayor Long, you're up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you very much for this opportunity and very much understand your concern about this being dropped on you at the last minute, and it is, and great apologies. Fact is that VDOT originally was going to close public comment September 11. I did not know that they had extended that date by 14 days. That's the 25th of September, which does allow Caroline County to submit comments if this board so desires. The town of Port Royal is the gateway to Caroline County. It has a great many resources, and indeed, we're proud to be part of Caroline County, and we want very much to work with Caroline County to make this resource and the many things that we have in Port Royal which benefit people not just in the county but in the area, such as the history, the river. What we have coming up, and this is from a VDOT document, is with the new Route 301 bridge over the Potomac River, they estimate the traffic to more than double. That bridge, which is called the Harry Nice Bridge, and it has another name now, I believe, will open in 2023. This is 2019. We're on the really close to 2020, so really in about 3 years, there's going to be a significant chunk of traffic extra coming down the road. Now, granted, these projections are 10 years out from then, but it's coming, and it's going to be very significant. And this is also a VDOT document. Again, traffic in the Port Royal area is going to double, or perhaps even more, from 15,000 to 29,400 is an approximation of doubling. There are two big issues in Port Royal. One issue is the through traffic, and then the second issue is the intersection of Route 301 and 17. VDOT has created some choices. For the through traffic, they've arrived at several different scenarios. One is using a raised median. Another is to have a turn lane down the center, also known as a suicide lane, because you're turning against oncoming traffic. And then VDOT has also proposed what they call a couplet. Irrespective, the through lane scenarios require VDOT acquiring more rights of way through the town of Port Royal that will impact the existing residences, that will impact the existing businesses. We have a number of lots which are very shallow and close to 301. If you take more land from those lots, it's problematic as to whether or not those lots would be able to function as they're originally being used now. This is the couplet solution which VDOT came up with. The couplet is taking only the southbound traffic and arcing that around the town of Port Royal, thereby freeing up 2 lanes that are in our existing main street, and those 2 lanes then one lane could be for turning, and then use the other lane for sidewalks, pedestrian uses, and stormwater management. With regard to the intersection problems, VDOT has about 4 different choices. 2 of the largest or most significant are a roundabout, and that would definitely impact our businesses at that intersection. And then the other one is a quadrant roadway, which after studying that for about an hour or so, still not sure if I understand it. We have had numerous public meetings with VDOT. We've had town council meetings. We've had at least 2 town council work sessions. We've had a joint meeting with the Planning Commission. And at the end of it all, the town council adopted a resolution by a vote of 6-1. That resolution is in support of 11 pages of comments and the preferred solution for the town. The preferred solution for the town of Port Royal is a bypass. This is a modification of the couplet. We've had many people on town council who want not just the southbound, but also the northbound traffic to bypass the town. And what we've done here is also to go from Route 17 and arc around and hit Route 301, thereby taking the pressure off of that intersection and saving VDOT the money of having to make those expensive changes that they were considering. You'll see somewhat of a T at coming off of one of those roundabouts. That T would come off of that first roundabout that's to the north and access the land bays which are to the west. That's because this section of highway, this bypass, will be limited access, and in VDOT speak, that means no access. In other words, we're not going to have that road chopped up and then defeat the very purpose it was created, which is to get traffic around the town of Port Royal. What the town of Port Royal wants to accomplish is to retake our main street and have it just a 25-mile-an-hour zone, friendly for pedestrians, and as a destination for travelers who want a respite, who want a sanctuary from being in the traffic on 301. Caroline County and the town of Port Royal, we've worked together in the past because of our joint efforts and the boundary line adjustment. The town was able to save the county probably well over $1.4 million. The town took on $600,000 in debt. That's the most we could do, and we were able to get $800,000 in grant money, which, reading the terms of the grant opportunities, that would have been very difficult for Caroline County to achieve for a number of reasons. So what we're looking for is cooperation between the town and Caroline County with regard to arriving at a transportation solution for the Route 17-301 intersection, a transportation solution for Route 301, our Main Street. We also, in pursuit of that, our timeline is very tight. To submit for the STARS program with VDOT, which is a very competitive program, we have to have our application ready by June. We're in the town of Port Royal. We'll have our comprehensive plan completed hopefully by January, and this will be in our comp plan. We're hoping that Caroline County will work with us and also recognize this road improvement or perhaps some variation thereof that we can agree on. It will be a joint effort. It has to be. Because if anything else, it's Caroline County which must make application. The choice of no, that's to say do nothing, will result in through traffic being very frustrated going through the town of Port Royal. It will result in the residents of Port Royal, not just the residents, but everybody in this area who goes to that town being very frustrated. And it's just it will be a very unsafe and probably disastrous outcome if it just continues to fester as it is. So we're looking to establish a positive relationship. We're looking to establish, again, an opportunity to collaborate and work together. Thank you, sir. Thank you, members of the board.
Mr. Long, before you go, the circles on the white path at the top, those are stoplights and not roundabouts?
Those are roundabouts, sir. We like roundabouts because it slows the traffic down.
But that's the bypass?
That's the bypass, yes, sir. The bypass, and listening to people who say, well, my God, look what the bypass did to the town of Bowling Green. Well, a large part of that is because you cannot see the town of Bowling Green from the bypass. The difference here is that this bypass is very, very tight to the town of Port Royal. Also, you're not only going to be able to see the town, but you will be able to access the town. And that's our goal. Again, I think Bowling Green has a fantastic downtown, a great Main Street, and Bowling Green's moving in a positive direction. We want to do the same. And
I think you need to talk to the town council of Bowling Green before you make that statement. We're moving in a new direction, but it's been very arduous.
Pardon me?
And it's been very arduous. That whole... Have you all talked to the businesses? I mean, Horns and the actual antique places that have all blossomed in the last 3 years?
We've had a number of people come to our public meetings. Yes, there's some.
So you've talked to the owners?
To Randolph's, yes. To Horns, some of my council members have, yes.
And I know some of the, two of the antique shop owners were at one of the meetings I attended, so I assume they attended others.
Why would you put roundabouts on the bypass?
Well, at Route 17, it's a point of traffic movements. They have a choice of either continuing on to Route 301, or there can be there can be a split where they go north on 17 to Fredericksburg, or perhaps they go south on 17 to Tappahannock.
Would it help if the county said they would support stoplights?
Well, and indeed, I'm not a traffic engineer. This is a rendering. This is not the definitive document. This is just a starting point. Just as Caroline County wants to to get water from the Rappahannock River, that's an arduous and complicated process. You got to start somewhere, and so they have all these choices. And this is not the definitive plan, this is
It
a
just seems
starting
like,
point.
it seems like if you wanted to get traffic that's going through away from the town, a roundabout, if I'm driving, I'm going to be a little upset that I'm on a bypass and I've got to go through this roundabout. So we would support, or I would support this idea, which looks good, if you made the roundabout traffic lights. And I don't know if VDOT doesn't want them, but I think that would be a much easier flow and better for all of us.
Thank you, sir. And indeed, it's not what I want, or I hate to say it, even what you want, but eventually it's going to be what VDOT decides. And that's tough. But we at least have, I think, an obligation. We have an obligation to try to, like, just as you did, give your input, and I think we do have an obligation to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're asking, is just for the county to give consideration, and not asking to say, this is it. No, just the county hopefully will undertake a study of this with the town of Port Royal. That's it.
Mr. Long? Mr. Long, sounds like y'all been going at this for a while. Is that a...
We've, with VDOT,
Yeah.
about a year.
It's actually the first I've heard of it. Maybe I've just been not...
Well,
in
actually,
touch with it,
the arterial preservation program, their public hearing was about a year ago. They decided to leave Port Royal out of that study and have a separate study for Port Royal. That segment has picked up about, I think it was about May or so.
Did they explore just pursuing an extra 40 feet to the west of 301 coming down? There's not a whole lot of development on that side of the street, and just keep it in its current road bed?
Well, the problem is that then you still have to contend with the intersection of 17 and 301, in which case Horns, and we're hoping one day that maybe another business will locate in the other quadrant there to 17 and 301. Right. But if they do if VDOT puts in their quadrant thingamajig, then they're going to take up enough ground that I don't think that business would be able to fit in there.
No, I would propose that they only grow to the west. The eastern boundary, which is where it is where it stays.
Yeah.
And only grow one side.
We've considered that, and believe me, there have been many, many, many hours of work on this by citizens, the Planning Commission, and the Town Council members.
Because I saw the photos, and I've experienced that myself, but my recollection on why it backs up is because of the stoplight, one, and two, because the turn lane is only about 200 feet long and needs to be about 2,000 feet long to take a left onto 17.
Yes, sir.
So you're blocking a lane of travel traffic with turning traffic.
You have a very good point, and yes, sir, that's true. The goal of VDOT is to move as much volume of traffic through there as safely and quickly as they can. The problem with that is that they have to limit the left turns. And if you're going to move those walls of traffic through, I say walls of traffic, you go out there tonight, right at this very moment, and there's hardly any vehicles out there. At peak times, case in point, if you looked at those photos, at peak times, it's literally backed up. And not just because waiting to make that turn, just because of the volume. And so if there's that great volume and you can't make left turns and they have a raised median, then where's our town? And the answer is our town now is an interstate highway, and that doesn't work.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Long.
I see your point. I asked the same question on VDOT. For one thing, the slides that were up that showed different designs on the road, I did say at one of the meetings, I said, Ms. Parker, I see this diagram. It's got 6 lanes in it, but it's still within the same volume we have. She said, oh, well, these are only ideas. We haven't measured yet to see what we can fit in. Okay, so I stepped back and I said, well, why aren't you using that field area and putting a right turn lane to Fredericksburg and extending and that? And I never could get an answer to them as to why they did not want to widen down in the area closest to the intersection. Any more that I could get an idea from them why they weren't more obvious in their diagrams, that it made it look like all these designs could work on the lanes we had. But then as I drive down past businesses and homes, I know if they go out 60 feet, they are going to take a business or they are going to take a home. And that never seemed to be discussed. And I just put that out for you to think about when you look at things, because don't just look at the diagrams because they haven't measured yet.
No, I'm actually trying to recall in my memory what is on the west side of 301, and I'm going down. I've got a vacant landscaping store. I got some other vacant buildings. I got field. I've got a relatively new office building. I've got the old school. I've got some other vacant lots. I mean, there's just not a lot of much on the west side of 301.
I can tell you on the left side, as you come off the bridge, where you've got the door.
I'm speaking strictly as you come off the bridge, strictly on the right side. I know the left side is very popular. The west side of 301.
If you're coming toward Bowling Green on the right side.
Correct.
All right, so you're going to have the entrance into Remington's, which is one of the biggest businesses. You're going to have the Dorothy Roy historic markers. You have the water facility, water testing facility. You have a business, a bakery, a printer, a vacant lot, and the museum, the old schoolhouse, the library, the new office buildings, and then you're right, you hit fields.
Irrespective of whatever's on the west side, it's a question, and this is the salient question right here. Does Port Royal want to have its main street be an interstate highway, or do we want a main street, a real main street? And those are two entirely different things.
Well, I don't think you have a main street now.
Pardon me?
You don't have a main street now. You got a road that goes through it, but there's nothing. Bowling Green has a main street where there's businesses on both sides. People park on the side of the road. In my mind, that's small town.
You're exactly right, sir, and that's what we want. Thank you. Thank you. You understand. Thank you.
Well, you want to preserve Main Street. You don't have a Main Street to preserve, right? You want to create a Main Street. That I get.
Oh, thank you.
But
we just have our verbs turn around.
All right, I'm good with that.
And in truth, Mr. Chairman, there was a main street before VDOT came through and added 2 lanes to it years ago.
Okay. That's pretty neat.
Actually, I found out that there was a structure attached to the old store there at the corner of 17 and 301. They called it the Moon House. And they say it was the best place to get a cheeseburger. Cheeseburger might have been a little greasy, but it was a great cheeseburger. And it's gone. It's gone because VDOT took that some time ago. It might have been, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or longer than that. But it's gone. VDOT's been eating up our town over the years. And now we want to take it back. We want to create a Main Street. Yes, sir. Absolutely. And that's to the betterment of the citizens of this town. Firmly believe it's to the betterment of the people of Caroline County and all those who care about an access point on the river, if they're coming from Maryland or Pennsylvania or North Carolina, or someone that wants to visit the wildlife refuge, or we want a place where people will go to. They want to go to Port Royal. They want to go to the refuge. They want to see the historic resources we have, and they want to have a good time.
Okie dokie. What action is needed, if any?
We included an original draft, and then there's this new draft that says, I think it's got a revised number 2 on it or something. Version number 2 for your consideration. But if you're going to do anything for comments, they evidently due tomorrow, so it'd have to want something sent.
Mr. Chair and Board, I will say that both of these letters state that we are not yet ready to commit to any support, but that we are willing to work with the town to come up with a viable solution. It says willing to explore joint planning and economic development efforts with the town. So it's not committing to anything, but it is letting them know that we are aware that they are working on something and the town has submitted a bypass plan.
I kind of like roundabouts personally. I'd rather have a roundabout than a stoplight on a bypass.
But this says that the goal being to create a limited access bypass is what we're agreeing to.
Right. By definition, the bypass is to go around something you don't want to go through as quickly as possible. And the only reason, and I see the one at the top being probably a stop sign for the other people, which they'd never get out, but the one at the bottom is probably a stoplight.
I think if they would just fix the current one, and that doesn't create the main street.
Mr. Chairman, not really asking for the board to approve whether we have a bypass or not, but rather to engage with the town and VDOT in moving forward in the planning process.
Well, I think the hang-up is in the letter that we're looking at. It actually states that the county is willing to explore joint planning and economic development efforts of the county, the goal being to create a limited access bypass. The letter indicates that we're committing, at least in theory, to limited access bypass. And, okay.
That's in this packet. Go in the original addendum.
I did not have this to read. I'm looking at all this for the first time tonight, which is really frustrating. Because it came via email that I couldn't open last night. So this is the first time I've seen this, and it's been in the first couple minutes to actually look at this.
Mr. Cully, if we were to say, like, if we want VDOT to look at this, I mean, what would they actually take us seriously? Would they?
Now, I don't think it hurts to support the town. VDOT's ultimately going to do what VDOT feels is best to move traffic, because that's their ultimate goal.
Yeah, whether it's safe or not.
And we did, there is, which I just showed, there is another letter, if you have some wording problem, there's in the one we sent out, and it's on the table packet. It's the first letter in. Wherever mine got covered up. I got it. It has a little bit of different ending to it.
But it still has two-way bypass.
Right, but the commitment part is while the Board of Supervisors is not ready to commit its support for a bypass through that portion of the county or around the town of Port Royal, the county does support further analysis of the option relative to other alternatives identified. So basically it supports adding this whole bypass into their study so that they would study this particular bypass. It doesn't say that we're agreeing that that's the right thing yet, but that we would like it included and be studied. It's not as strong a support as what the town would like, but it does. No, that's the second one. The one that I'm reading from is in your right hand. Well, it looks like it should say proposed amendments to the. Other than that, they're basically the same support letter. I mean, if you want to make some changes to either one of them, we certainly could do that as well. But the deadline's tomorrow, so if you're going to send anything, got to come up with something.
We're basically saying we support the bypass and further study in developing the actual route. That's all we need to say,
Basically
right?
saying add it to the alternatives already being studied.
Yeah.
Because they proposed southbound bypass. This is broadening that to a complete bypass north and southbound. I mean, a little bit further.
That's fair. Because it's like with the town of Bowling Green, they don't really do anything. The county has to get involved with them like we did with Anderson Avenue. So, we're trying to work it. What we really need to do is look at this. If you look at this in maps, it's kind of hard to get that much of bypass right off the bridge. So I don't know how they're going to make it happen, but we'll support them trying to make it happen. The road's going to have to come off the bridge because there's not a lot of lane to get to the right. But we support looking at it.
We're just going to wipe out their economic.
Oh, okay. Well, I can make.
Well, and nobody's going to.
You don't want to make the motion?
I prefer the letter here, personally.
That's the one, yeah, in our packet.
Yep. One dated September 23rd versus September 24th. That's my preference, but, I'm
Mr.
just
Chairman, I
sick.
move we send the letter dated September the 23rd to VDOT.
Unless I go down to here and then go up.
Mr. Thomas,
Second.
thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send the letter that's dated September 23rd, 2019 to Mr. Stephen Hayes on behalf of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors. All those in favor, or any other discussion on that before we vote?
No, we're not saying roundabouts or stoplights.
No,
It's
it doesn't
fairly
specify
vague, so we're
anything.
good.
It just says, please study this more.
We're good.
Everything's on the table.
Aye.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that letter.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors,
sir.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Long. All right, where's my agenda? All right, next on the agenda is item 6C, National Night Out discussion. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, during my visit to the National Night Out at Caroline Pines and over at Dawn, talking to the people that sponsored the National Night Out, this is one of their largest expenses for their HOA in Caroline Pines, and Second Mount Zion really did the bulk of the lifting for the National Night Out. And Dawn, I know there were a couple other areas as well that had National Night Out. And I think it's only fair that, from my perspective, that we support this. I'd like to see us reimburse the HOA and the folks who are responsible for sponsoring the National Night Out up to $500. Go back to those entities.
You're talking about actual cost.
Yeah, actual cost up to $500.
I'm just clarifying. Actual costs.
They have a record. I'm sure they have a record of what they spent. I know Caroline Pines does. I talked to the clerk, was it? The treasurer. She said this is her biggest expense for Caroline Pines HOA. And I just think it would be, and then I'd like to look at us, have a discussion about it going forward when we have our budget meeting. But
I thought we were going to discuss it in our budget meeting last year, but we do the Harvest Festival in Bowling Green, we do Ladysmith Day, we do some other things throughout the county. I don't know if we give enough to the 4th of July and Port Royal, but yeah, we do now. But there's other things like Milford Day and others, so we were trying to make Frog Level Day, tried to make sure we contribute to all of those community activities because that's part of community development.
All those things that you mentioned, though, are all 501c3s, and I'm not sure that these HOA POAs are. And we might could reimburse them for, so if they brought us a receipt, but I don't think we can just make a donation, a blanket donation.
Say what? We
couldn't just make a blanket donation to
an HOA?
Yeah,
HOA is usually a non-stock corporation, but I don't think, it would be unusual for it to be a tax-exempt entity under 501c3.
That was the problem we ran into with the Polar Bear Plunge.
So we can't reimburse them?
No.
If they bring receipts, like an expense list, then we could.
We can't reimburse them.
No, you probably could. You just could make a blanket donation, say we're going to give each one of them $500 for putting on the event.
Oh, but we can reimburse them.
If they've kept if they've got actual receipts.
Okay.
And we can tie it all down.
Okay.
you guys have one too.
And the town does.
So,
if you want to do that,
so
I'll
Mr. Chairman,
second it.
what's that?
I said I'll second
Yeah.
it.
So, Mr. Chairman, in essence, I'd like to have the board reimburse those entities that can provide receipts that they've sponsored national nights out in the communities across Caroline County.
With this,
With a maximum of $500 per reimbursement.
Are we going to do a maximum number of entities?
Yeah, we know. There was
Okay.
only,
Okay.
It's the,
there were only, there's only 6.
Okay.
yeah, I only had one. You had one.
I have one.
A couple other people had two. Yeah. You had two?
Yeah, 2 Nancy. One. So just 6.
And the town did mine.
Something like that.
But you can do one in Sparta next year,
Well, I could, yeah.
and I could do one in Milford.
Yeah.
Well, they'll just stay a few minutes later. Yeah. It is a big community development activity. So I like it.
where did the initial motion was, Mr. Hunt, for $500 per for reimbursement?
Up to $500 per.
Do we want to set a, is this just this past August?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk about
And
during budget time.
budgeting
Yeah.
moving forward. Okay, and there'll be some application process? Or,
Do that at the budget.
and it was seconded by Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion?
The motion is up to $500 with receipt, with proof of expenditures.
That's my understanding,
Okay.
yes.
That's correct.
I think our hands are tied, it must be an
Right,
expense.
it's got to be.
Yes.
This is for this past year.
Right,
Yes.
2019.
Only
It's not the
2019.
main name.
So if they've paid already, then, if they've paid the bill already, then they can still submit receipt.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
I'm going to take us to close. Do you want to do closing board comments?
okay
I'll do
with
the
that, 'cause it's a
motion, and then
short
we'll do
thing,
closing board comments.
Okay. Board members, we're going to, we do have a couple closed meeting items. Let's go ahead and do any closing board comments that you might have now for our vast audience to woo over. Mr. Thomas, would you like to start us off? You want to come back to you?
I don't have any, actually. Thank you.
Mr. Black?
Yeah, I have just actually two. There is a wiffle ball tournament this Saturday, hopefully, at the Ladysmith Rotary Club. So I know Mr. Parton said he has a team together, Mr. Whiteman as well. So looking forward to that. And also, the advertisement for the fireworks at the State Fair looks like it's phenomenal. So I look forward to that as well. So thank you.
It's they're having fireworks at the State Fair?
No, he's just pulling regular
Oh, okay.
channel.
All right. Okay.
He's sarcastic. He's so funny.
Sorry, I didn't catch the sarcasm. My bad. All right, Ms. Long.
I have none.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I have two. On October 5th at Second Mount Zion Baptist Church, there's a domestic violence and bullying forum from 10 o'clock a.m. to 1. Again, that's October 5th. And then I have a constituent meeting tomorrow at Oxford Mount Zion Baptist Church at 7 o'clock. That's the 25th. Then October 1st, I have a constituent meeting at Second Mount Zion Baptist Church at 7 o'clock. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, Mr. Seeley?
I have a constituent meeting the 24th of October at Salem Baptist Church.
All right, and I have no other comments for this evening. The county picnic is on October 12th. If you would, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. If you'd like to attend, please let Pam know. That is at the county park, and you can take a walk on our wonderful county trail if you'd like. And with that, we'll go and make a motion. Mr. Seeley, go into closed session.
Mr. Chair, I move that this board now go into closed meeting to discuss matters exempt from the open meeting requirement for the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. For the purpose of closed meeting is to consult with and receive legal advice from legal counsel retained by the county regarding potential changes to the county zoning ordinance, which is exempt from pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia, to consult with, and also to consult with legal counsel retained by the county pertaining to actual litigation and the settlement thereof involving services provided by Clean Harbors Environmental Services, Inc. for the county's household hazardous waste collection day in April 2018, which is exempt pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're now in closed session.
Motion to come out of closed session. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to come out of closed session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're out of closed session.
You got to say, I need a motion. I make a motion to certify that anything said in closed session was only that which was certified under what we went into closed session for, 2 issues. That's a motion.
I thought the chair just asked to be certified. Okay. I certify or make a second, whatever you want to do.
So certified.
I so certify.
I so certify.
I so certified.
I so certified.
I so certified.
I so certified.
I lost my other piece. Anyways, come out of closed session, I move that this board authorize the following: enter into a settlement agreement with Clean Harbors Environmental Services, Inc. in full and final settlement of their invoice and claim for payment for services they provided for the county's household hazardous waste collection day, April 2018. Issuance of payment in the amount of $3,500 to Clean Harbors Environmental Services, Inc. pursuant to the settlement agreement, and that the county administrator or his deputy may sign an executive and deliver the settlement agreement and all documents related thereto on behalf of the county.
We're going to deliver that in all pennies, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
The real value in the value of it.
Can we do that?
We need a second.
I need a second.
Second.
Can you make like 10 checks or 100 checks? 100 checks for $35.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Can we get a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are officially adjourned.